Stop. If your Kubernetes app is storing anything important inside a pod, you might already be losing data. Not because Kubernetes is broken, but because it's working exactly as designed. Let me ask you something. If I restart your pod right now, will your data survive? Most engineers think yes. And those engineers are absolutely wrong. And you know the scary part? You won't even know when your data is gone until production users starts to complain. No warning, no alerts, just silent deletion. Hi, I'm Shivam, and this is the first video of the series Data and Reality Check. Today I will show you where Kubernetes actually stores your data, why your file disappears, what ephemeral storage actually means, and how easy it is to accidentally wipe everything. I am running everything locally on my Kind cluster so I can reproduce this exactly. So without wasting any further time, let's head on to the demo section. So this is my Kind cluster. I have one control plane node and two worker nodes. Currently, I do not have any pods running in my cluster. So let's create data and destroy it. For this, I'm going to create a YAML file for my pod. So this is a very simple pod configuration. As you can see, the kind is pod, the name of the pod is data test, and it is running an Nginx image. Let's go ahead, save this, and we'll apply this file. So it says our pod has been created. Let's check that. It says our pod is up and running. Now let's exec into the pod. I am using kubectl exec command. So I am inside my pod. Let's go to this directory. I will create a file called important.txt. Okay, it seems like vi is not working. Let's try it another way. Now I'm gonna redirect it to a file. So I'm using an echo command to write this data into this file. Okay, our file has been created. Let's check the contents inside it. So it clearly says this is a critical data. Great. The data exists now. This feels safe. Now let me exit from my pod. So in production, pod restarts all the time. Deployment crashes, node pressures, or even rolling updates. Let me try to delete this pod and we'll see the consequences. So it says our pod has been deleted. Let's check that. So we don't have any pods running. Now let's try to recreate that same pod using kubectl apply command. It says our pod has been created. Yep. Now let's exec into this pod. I will go to that same directory and you see we do not have important.txt file what we created. It's gone. Completely gone. No warnings, no errors, no recovery. This is not a bug. It's ephemeral storage. Every container in Kubernetes has a writable file system layer attached to the container lifecycle. When the container dies, the writable layer dies with it. Temporary, disposable, and replaceable. If your app writes data directly inside the container file system, you are building your application on sand. In this situation, most engineers will think, okay, fine, I will mount a volume to it. So our next use case will be mounting an empty directory to this pod. So let me exit out of this pod. Let me delete this pod. I am also gonna remove this pod file and I'm gonna recreate it again. I have already written the pod configuration. Let me copy that. So we can clearly see the kind is pod. The name of the pod is empty directory test. It is running an Nginx image and this part is critical. If you see here, I am creating a volume named cache volume and I have attached an empty directory to it. And I'm gonna mount this volume inside my container using volume mounts. I'm using the same name here, and inside our container, this volume will be mounted at this location, which is mount path. So inside our container, if we go to this directory /data, we will have our directory mounted here. So let's go ahead and we will apply this pod configuration. So it says our pod has been created. Let's check that. So our pod is up and running here. Now again, I'm gonna exec into the pod using kubectl exec command. I'm gonna copy this pod name. So I am inside my pod. Let's go to the data directory. We have nothing here. Here I'm trying to create a file and the contents of the file is stored in empty directory. Let me apply this. So we have our file stored here and we can clearly see the contents of it. Fine. Everything looks normal till here. Let me exit from the pod. Again, I will try to delete this pod. Okay, our pod has been deleted. Let's check that. There are no pods running in my cluster. Let's reapply our file to recreate the pod. So it says our pod has been created. Our pod is up and running. Again, let's exec into the pod. I will go to data directory and you see our file.txt is gone. So empty directory is created when the pod starts. It stores on the node shared between containers, but it survives only as long as the pod survives. If you delete the pod, your storage gets deleted. Or if your node crashes, again, your storage is deleted. It's still ephemeral, just at the pod level instead of container level. Now imagine this in production. If your app stores data in /uploads folder, you deploy a new version, your old pod terminates and new pod restarts, all the data inside /uploads folder is gone. Users starts to get error, your dashboard turns red, and Kubernetes, it says working as intended. So Kubernetes is not a VM. It is designed for stateless applications, replaceable compute, and disposable pods. Storage inside a pod is temporary by design. If you treat pods like permanent servers, you will lose data. Now, the real question becomes, if container storage disappears and if empty directory also disappears, then how do company runs databases, file storage, and stateful systems? Where does the data actually live? In the next video, I will show you why your data disappears, what persistent volumes really are, and how to make data survive pod deletion on the same kind cluster. We will delete pods, restart them, and your data will stay. That's the difference between experimenting and running production safely. I will see you in the next one. Till then, keep learning.